Good evening, everyone. Welcome back to the Demilitarized Zone. We are here to help you feel better about engaging in the hot-button issues that plague us today. Our goal here is to teach discourse survival tactics, not just farm gotchas and dunks. We cultivate meaningful, intelligent conversation where you have to stop and listen to the other person, even if it is just to find the flaws in what they are saying. So, at least for tonight, please check your weapons at the door, take notes, act like grown-ups, and refrain from the blood sports and shit-slinging that have plagued our politics for far too long. Our audience does get a say here. There will be a link in the chat at the end of each debate where you can vote for a winner. So please exercise your democratic rights. It is completely free, and decide which side made the most persuasive case. Now, everybody sit back, relax, and listen up, because who knows? Someone here might just change your mind tonight. Now, introducing tonight's debaters and judges. From the top left, we have Lutch, the Indian Jesus. We have Gorps in the top center, and we have Kay in the top right. Those are all of our affirmative debaters tonight. Our judges to the left of me on your screen, far left is Mr. AlleyCat, and in the center is Mr. Cassell. They are going to be the most fairest and most unbiased judges ever. Bottom left corner, we have a new face on the stream. Mr. Cypher is going to be on the negative, as is LetsChief in the bottom center, and Searka in the bottom right. We have 3 debates on tap for us tonight. One about the North American continent, you can see right there. One about the Second Amendment, and one about term limits. So, and that's going to be the order of appearance as well. Just so everybody knows, at the end of this, we will have an open panel after party where anybody who's vouched or vetted is welcome to jump on in here and tell us everything you think didn't get said in the debates. Finally, we are going to have our format. 3 minutes open for each affirmative, followed by 2 minutes cross-examination from the negative. Then they get 3 minutes of their own cold open, followed by 2 minutes of cross-examination by the affirmative. Then we're going to open the panel, or open the conversation up for a 10-minute free talk session, which I have the ability to add an extra 5 minutes to if I choose to. During that time, the judges are going to message me any questions that they think needed to be asked and or that fill out their judging. I'm going to ask those as opposed to having the judges do it, so you don't have to debate the debate or debate the judges. And then after that, we're going to have 3-minute closes from each of you in the same order, affirmative and then negative. We still need to have that talk, by the way, Allie. Anyhow, after that, we're going to go to the judges. We're going to listen to their takes. And after the 2 judges have weighed their score on a 10-point basis, we're then going to go ahead and go over to the audience. Oftentimes, that means that the audience is either a tiebreaker or they don't actually matter. So, but either way, it's important for you to vote so that we know where you guys landed. Now, our first debate of the night. The North American continent should form an American union similar to the EU. Our debaters on this prompt are the 2 on the far right. Wow, that's cool that happened this way. That is going to be Kay in the top right corner, defending that position, and Searka in the bottom right corner, trying his best to knock it down. So, I'm going to assume since almost everybody's been here before except for Cypher, and you've got plenty of time to watch and see how it goes, I'm going to assume nobody has any questions. Cool. Then in that case, 3 minutes is on the clock. Kay, the timer starts when you do.
Okay. Well, since this debate prompt was a comparison, let's take a look at what we're comparing and see what joining the EU has done for the countries that participated. Homicide rates have dropped by 75%. The UNODC has reported a 63% decline in drug use. Inter-UA trade goods went up by 501%, which went from 665 billion to 4 trillion. EU trade services went up from 107 billion to 3 trillion, a 1,696% increase. Nominal GDP went up 223%. Purchasing power went up 60%. The single market approach has accounted for an extra 4% of GDP growth. The EU has become the largest trading bloc, accounting for 14% of global trade in goods. Poland and Malta saw their economies double in this time. Eastern countries have had similar luck with prior to this only having 32% of the comparable U.S. GDP per capita to now 55%. After joining in 2004, Lithuania rose from 42% to 90%, and this also trickled down to households with income growing by 95%. And an extra 5.8 billion being from 5.8 billion to 78 billion in 2024 for the GDP. Newer member states have had similar luck, going from 41% in poverty to 17%. Members of the free movement enjoy something called the 4 freedoms of border-free travel, the ability for citizens to live, study, work, and retire where they want. They have over 448 million citizens and roughly 500 million total consumers when you include the EEA. 27 countries have directly benefited from this country's stabilized and improvement. Now let's take a look at North America. A North American Union includes 23 sovereign nations, 621 million people, which is 8% of the population, and represents 1/3 of global GDP and about 1/3 of natural resource. Wow, that's a lot of resources and labor. How do we know that can work? Well, let's first take a look at NAFTA and the USMCA, but for this conversation, I'll call it the CUM Trade Alliance. The CUM Alliance alone has made 85 trillion worth of wealth. Intra-trade or regional trade has grown by 37%. As of 2024, Mexico and Canada replaced China as the top trading partners of the U.S. Foreign direct investments surged by 123%, investing $569 billion in 2022 alone. 17 million jobs have been created across North America, 10 million of which rely on openly trading and exporting goods to neighbor countries. Rapid response labor mechanisms have solved 71% of triggered cases, increasing wages and worker rights. The region has become a unified manufacturing hub with components crossing the border up to 8 times before vehicles are finished, showing that it's working and redistributing the wealth. Further expanding to this, to encompass a union comparable to the European Union would rapidly expand the economy, establish stability in North America, increase bargaining power on the world stage for all countries, including middle countries that previously would have had none, decrease crime, lower illegal immigration, and restore manufacturing to the region while creating jobs, eliminate currency imbalance, reduce reliance on IMF loan systems, and incentivize peace.
All right, and that's time. Just for those of you who do not know or who are new here, the timer is for the judges as much as anything. It's to let you know how long you've been talking, to let them know how closely they're landing on the platform. At the end of the day, if you're in the middle of something, I do everything I can to wait until you are between thoughts or have finished your sentence. So I try to be as respectful for y'all as I can. That said, 2 minutes is on the clock now for you, Searka. Go ahead and poke your holes whenever you're ready, sir. You are muted, by the way. You are still muted, Searka.
Sorry, I was looking for my Discord thing.
Yep, you're good. Go ahead.
That was a lot. A lot of it's pretty cool, pretty positive stuff about Europe's integration over time, which I don't think anyone would dispute. But would this union include like a shared currency?
It could.
It could? I mean, if it's like the EU, then it would probably be like a euro, right?
Yes, it could. Again, with the EU, not every country is on the European.
So how do we deal with the imbalance between, like, Mexico, for instance, is quite a different level of development compared to the US? Do we just let Mexico use the US dollar or like take out debt securities, or how would this work? Would we just use the dollar?
Integration the same way that Europe did. You build up the economies, and over time,
I don't
they
think
can
that would
join in on
be
the currency.
as positive as it relates to like to the euro in Europe, for instance, right? Mexico is a country that's kind of destabilized, and I guess what I'm trying to say here is there's like an institutional threshold problem, as opposed to most European countries that don't have that.
I mean, a lot of European countries started from a way poorer and more unstable location, or especially when it came to like post USSR. A lot of the Eastern Bloc like suffered, and they've been integrating.
Most of those countries aren't in the EU though, aren't they? I'm pretty sure only like 2 or 3 of them are, right? I mean, I'm missing out on the Balkan or the northern countries next to Finland, but most of those countries are not really in the EU for that reason, kind of.
Well, I mean, we have, well, depending on what you mean by the Eastern Bloc, you have 11 countries, but I mean,
yeah.
Those 11 countries. Okay, go ahead.
How would you kind of factor in the thermostat problem or like optimum currency area theory? Do you know what those are?
I'll go ahead and give you time to go ahead and answer that question, Kay.
Okay. So I'm not fully engaged with the problem that you're referencing.
Okay, we'll get to it later then. 3 minutes is going on the clock for you now, Searka, for your opening, sir. Clock will start whenever you're ready.
Sure. I'm gonna put this away real fast. I just want to start with a quick reality check, okay? I get why this feels kind of exciting. Okay, all the positives that Kay mentioned were pretty great about Europe. It's the promise of less friction, less paperwork, less waiting around. But once you call it a union, you're not talking about trade deals and handshakes anymore. You're talking about shared authority, shared liability, and shared crisis. That's entirely different than like NAFTA or what he mentioned with the Common Alliance, I believe. Now, a union runs on trust, and trust is built on consistency. Right now, Mexico has real strength, but its institutional reach and public safety aren't consistent at all across its regions. And that's not really me being cheap or making a cheap shot. It's just the current reality of Mexico. In a union, uneven enforcement doesn't stay local, it spills outward, and the stronger system gets stretched, the rules get bent, and the union starts living on expectations. Then there's the currency question. A common money, euro-like, would hand the dollar stability to a 3-speed economy, like sharing one thermostat. It sounds fair until a crisis hits, and suddenly someone is eating inflation, bailouts, Mexico wanting to develop more, and then punishing interest rates. So no, I'm not rejecting cooperation. I'm rejecting a leap into shared authority before the basics are steady. If the rules won't land evenly and the costs won't land evenly, the union won't feel like unity. It'll feel like a permanent triage. We all respect the word union because it sounds like solidarity, but reality doesn't salute our ideals, and a union built on instability is just a label taped onto a fault line. That's my opening.
All right. 2 minutes is going to go on the clock now for you, Kay. Use it as you see fit, sir.
Do you acknowledge that the American founding principle is that of a collective union?
Yep.
Do you think America is better off because of the unified 50 states?
I think it is, yeah.
Do you believe workers should have freedom to live, work, study, and retire where they please, as long as it's consensual?
Can you say the question again?
Do you believe that workers should share in those 4 freedoms that I listed, if consensual, of living, working, studying, and retiring where you wish, as long as it's consensual?
I guess, yeah.
Do you think other countries would be worse or better off trading with the U.S. within a free union?
Which countries are you talking about?
The other countries that would participate in the union. There's 23 of them.
Okay, so we're just talking about North America, right?
Yes.
I think Mexico may benefit in the short term. I'm not sure about the long term. The U.S. would most definitely not benefit, and Canada probably would not benefit.
Do you think people would be more or less free under an expanded North American union?
They would not be more free if we just made a union between Mexico, Canada, and the U.S.
That's the end of my questions.
All right. Well, then in that case, 10 minutes is on the clock. Feel free to just converse as you guys see fit. Go ahead when you're ready.
Yeah, I would like him to start with like the money thermostat if you want to go there. Do you want to elaborate on like pinpoint and specify what you think the major problem is?
Yeah, so the needs as well as how the U.S. spends money are going to be greatly different than Mexico, right? Now, you probably could quickly think that the same would be true for something like a European country that's near the Eastern Bloc, like you mentioned earlier. But Mexico is not in any way close to being developed, even in the same realm as, let's say, Poland. Okay, at the end of the Berlin Wall falling, Mexico is institutionally extremely weak, and creating a union with them wouldn't really benefit them or benefit the U.S. And what I mean by the thermostat would be, we have 3 different countries that are trying to do 3 different things, because Mexico needs to do something other than what the United States does right now to make sure it's institutionally strong. And then we could probably talk about this, but right now it's not even, it has nothing to bring to the table. And I don't mean that to be like negative against Mexico inherently. It's just, it needs to develop more.
Yeah, but I mean, the prompt doesn't say, do we need to right now form an American Union? Obviously, you can do incremental milestones to reach this goal. It's a general question if we should do that. I mean, the timeline could shift.
I think we should not do it right now. Yeah.
Okay. Like as in like snap your finger right now. I think pretty much every economics professor would agree with this. I think this would be something that you roll out over time. I mean, you can probably do it with Canada,
I want to address that. Do you know for a fact that Mexico will at some point be able to meet the expectations that we're talking about?
No, nobody knows anything for a fact.
Okay, so what you just said is not relevant.
This is ideals.
Because you can't just assume. You can't just assume it'll happen in the future if you don't know whether or not it will happen.
I'm not assuming. I'm setting benchmarks for us to try to achieve. The idea is, should we try to be achieving a economic union similar to how Europe chased and achieved it? Yeah. You're arguing timelines.
A lot of things in the world we probably should do. Whether it's pragmatic or actually works is a different question.
Yeah, and every step that we've taken closer to union-like behavior has benefited North America substantially.
You mean benefited the United States?
You're saying that Canada and Mexico did not get anything out of NAFTA?
I mean, no, they did. They did. We got the ability to not have any import tax or like excise fees, things like that. And then it kind of made the American worker probably a little worse off, if I'm being honest, but
it's worse off when we have more jobs and higher wages and more economic financial investment into America. Seems kind of weird.
NAFTA does more than just that. I mean, what do you think NAFTA does?
Well, there's quite a few things. I mean, you would have to be specific on what you think that it is. What do you think
it makes more jobs for Americans?
How do I think? By a pretty much, long story short, is that by expanding our trade with other countries, where you need to have people to make these parts, ship these parts, assemble these parts, shift around how these parts are going. As they stated, they cross the border.
NAFTA allowed companies to build factories in Mexico and Canada, shift the jobs out of the country, and then let them come in with no taxation. So I don't know what you're talking about. That's why a lot of things are assembled in Mexico and Canada.
It set new rules for automotive, set labor standards. It increased our digital trade as well.
It set labor standards for the countries that are in NAFTA, yes, like Mexico. They have to build, assemble the cars to a standard, yes. That doesn't mean it made jobs for Americans.
Why don't you think it made jobs? Like, do you have any statistics that show that it didn't make jobs?
No, I think it'd be pretty hard to actually prove the negative here or the positive. I'm sure someone could probably see the effect of it, but NAFTA on its own is a free trade agreement that allowed companies to build factories in Mexico and Canada and then import those goods after they were assembled with no taxation. So I'm not sure how that would really, it just doesn't logically make sense to say it'll make jobs.
Because people need to facilitate this. You have to facilitate the imports, the exports.
It allowed Mexican truck drivers even to come across state lines. So, I mean, Mexican workers were able to facilitate it as well. But I feel like we're a little off topic now. How would you deal with the fact that many parts of Mexico are like on the level 4 don't travel list, as in like you probably don't have any freedom to actually go to those places right now, to be in direct contrast to what you said earlier?
I think that we should be in contact with the Mexican government and provide military aid to help pretty much clean up a lot of the situations there.
Do you think that'll help? What are we going to do? Just like roll through the jungle and carpet bomb everyone? I feel like
no, we don't have
Mexican
to run
government
through the jungle anymore.
Cannot handle it right now because of its institutional strength. But
the institutional
how would you go about doing
Mexico or the cartel?
Institutional strength in Mexico. The government is not. It doesn't have the ability to stand on its own yet. The cartels essentially
exactly. That's why they would need help from the U.S. That's how making pathways to build a union would probably start by the U.S. Negotiating with Mexico for resource deals and trade deals in exchange for.
We do that already. We don't need a union for that though.
In exchange for military intervention there. You don't need to do it, but it's preferable.
The problem with military intervention, man, is that these are Mexican citizens, right? And I mean, how are you supposed to know if someone's in a cartel?
I mean, we have one of the most advanced tracking systems.
I'm talking about every single person you come across. And
you're not going to know if every single person is in a cartel, but the cartel has to travel in caravans to dispel the drugs pretty much. The most of it is legally going through ports of entry as well. So if we negotiate with Mexico,
I want you to understand it's going to be a lot harder than just sending the military in when it comes to.
Yeah, I mean, it's going to take also tightening the legal entry ports and the border and doing more thorough inspections, which is going to need more people, more money. This is something we can negotiate with Mexico.
Okay, you know that this probably, even if we did wipe out all the cartels, that may leave Mexico vulnerable to where people who aren't the cartels could just fill in the space, and it could end up being worse. Do you think we should take that risk?
Yes. Why would you do nothing about the cartels and let it sit? Take the maybe risk and speculation that something might get worse if you try to address the problem.
I mean, historically speaking, I think we can probably say it usually ends up worse. But
historically, in what regards? Like, who are you pointing to? Like the Middle East? Or?
Probably every Latin American country in South America.
Sorry, when's the last time we decided to have consensual talks and unilateral agreements with Latin America to help dispel cartels?
No,
last time
when we try and do nation building. I'm throwing in nation building a little there.
Well, the nation building that you're talking about is on unconsensually going in and overthrowing, like a socialist leader here, or funding a business.
It's consensual. Most of those are consensual with at least some people in the country. So,
at least some people. I mean, we're talking about two different approaches. I do not believe in doing this by pure force. I believe that the only path forward to cleaning up this continent and having this unilateral trade is through consensual bridge building between the nations.
One last thing, because I think again we're getting off topic, but how do you know the people you're talking to consensually are even trustworthy?
I mean, same way that we do with anybody, pretty much. We talk to them. If they hold to the agreements.
We do know when Macron from France, even though he's a weirdo, okay? We do know he's at least trustworthy, but we don't actually when we talk to Mexico at the moment, unfortunately. But I want to circle around to how migration would kind of work, okay? So if we allowed Mexico to come into a union with the U.S., what do you think would happen to wages in the U.S.?
I think that overall they would grow and or remain the same.
How much does a bus driver in Mexico make per day, and how much does a bus driver in the U.S. make per day?
I don't know. Do you have the stats right off the top of your head?
I don't. I can tell you a Swedish one, but my point is that we all know it's a lot less. It's a lot less in Mexico, right?
Yeah.
So if you are a Mexican citizen and now you're in a union with America, why are you just going to stay being a Mexican bus driver? Wouldn't you just go to America and make 60 times more money driving a bus doing the same job?
This is, again, under the presumption you have that you would instantly snap your fingers and do this. The building up of
I'm just addressing the question of whether or not we make a union with Mexico. I mean, do you think there should be no migration movement at all, or?
I didn't say there'd be no migration. Obviously, at different phases.
I didn't say you did. I'm just trying to figure out what you mean by.
I could be able to answer that.
Yeah.
Thank you. Yeah, so at different phases, you're going to have different levels of integration. You don't just say, hey, everybody come over immediately. You have to build infrastructure and stabilize the country before you lift a lot of the restrictions that are in place. Eventually, you would have more and more.
Are they going to use their own money or our currency?
They would most likely stay on their currency for the beginning phases with the option to buy into the American currency. I mean, they already hold a shit ton of it as its reserves, but they could transfer over into the US dollar.
Mexico?
Every country has a shit ton of USD in their reserves.
Yeah, I mean, they have a lot of countries have a lot of debt too. That's not that much, I promise you. Mexico dumping their treasury bonds of US dollars wouldn't really do much.
I didn't say they should dump US bonds. I don't know why you're referencing that during this.
You mentioned their amount in reserves, right? So how much money in US dollars they have, but
yeah, but why does
so they would use their own money. Isn't this just kind of like not doing a union then, and then just like waiting until they're like institutionally
you already
stable
admitted that it's still a union when the European Union was. I mean, when the European Union started, not everybody adopted the euro, and not every single participant adopts the euro. Even the UK literally kept the pound during this. You're making assumptions.
Well, I'm not making assumptions. I am trying to figure out. My questions are questions. They're just trying to figure out what you mean when you say union. I mean, the prompt is pretty clear. But that's why I'm asking you questions on what you.
But you said they did. They didn't drop the pound. What are you talking about? The UK still operated on the pound when they were part of Europe.
No, I said that. I said they. You were right. I didn't say you were wrong.
Okay,
where they dropped the pound. Yeah.
Okay, sorry, that was miscommunication.
I'm just asking. I am just asking questions to figure out what you mean by union, right? And to me, it seems like it's not really much of a union at the moment.
It isn't as much of a union at the moment. Yes, that's why you build up the unions. It takes time.
Okay.
A tree isn't a tree when it's a sapling. It's a sapling and then it becomes a tree.
All right, so I'm going to go ahead and jump in there real quick. Because we actually do have a few questions from judges. Also, if the other judge does have any questions, go ahead and make sure and send those to me. But we have a couple questions from one of the judges, and we actually have 2 questions from me. So I'm going to put 1 minute on the clock for each of these questions. Looking at you first, we're going to go 1, 2, 1, 2 with y'all. So first question is for you, Kay, on the affirmative. Would you support a global union?
A global union?
Would you support the formation of a global union similar to what you're proposing for the North American continent?
I mean, if it's a global union, then you wouldn't really need a union at all, unless if you just mean hey, we all just agree to the same terms. Wouldn't really be necessarily. I guess yes, if everybody is just agreeing to the same terms, I don't see why if everyone's consenting, why you wouldn't do that.
All right. Now, looking at you, Searka, for the negative. Question for you. First one is, do the benefits of the Union of States benefit each state equally? In your arguments, you had said that one of the reasons you were against this is because of the imbalance of benefits. And you also mentioned that the unions of the states was beneficial. Do you believe that the states are benefited equally by the United States' union?
No, they're not benefited equally, but they do benefit overall.
Okay, good enough answer. Back to you, Kay.
Okay.
Do you have a breakdown of the GDP differences across these North American countries? The North American countries that you listed, do you have a general breakdown of the GDP differences?
I do of Canada, United States, and Mexico, but I couldn't find all the data for all 23 countries.
I'm not sure GDP is a good metric for this right now. GDP can be very fluctuative or can fluctuate a lot, and it doesn't really tell a good story of how the country is economically doing. It's an important indicator, obviously, but
okay, no, fair enough. It's the question the judge wanted to ask. So, insult the judge; they'll love that. Last question for you, Searka. I know I'm just fucking with you. Last question for you. How disruptive is the differentials in development across the countries? I'll read that again. How disruptive is the differentials in the development across the countries?
extreme.
Okay.
I mean, between Canada and U.S., if you want a real answer, sorry, Canada and the U.S., not so much. It's not extreme, but unfortunately, Mexico and the U.S., it would be extreme.
All right. Cheers. Now, we actually only have one question from our other judge, and it is for UK on the affirmative. And the question is, the question is, there we go. Do you know of any instances of NAFTA creating jobs in the U.S.? I think that the question was asked about that during the debate, and I do not believe that it was answered. So, to the best of your knowledge, has NAFTA created or led to job creation in the United States?
Is that for me?
I believe it
That's
has.
Sorry.
I believe that it has supported jobs in the U.S. and have created jobs. He is right that it's like highly debated because it depends on how if you want to consider it the trigger, or if you think that because of this it opened a pathway to others. It depends how many dominoes you want to go. The number that I think is important to rely off of, that I think is a fair middle ground on that, is that 5 million jobs were expanded upon in the U.S. To support and facilitate the commerce trade between Canada, U.S., and Mexico. And from supported, you can go on it's not direct creation. Yeah, let me dig it up for you.
No worries.
Yeah, sorry to
and no, it's okay. Well, and for what it's worth, I'm going to go ahead and now throw the same question to you, Searka, because it seems like you have an answer for it as well. Do you, to the best of your knowledge, know of any jobs that were created by NAFTA in the United States?
I don't know of any. I'm assuming that there probably was an adaptation and jobs were made. Is it like a reasonable number that we would care about? Or something significant? I don't think that would be true. I mean, NAFTA, again, if you read through it, which I'm reading through it again, it eliminates all the tariffs between the countries. It essentially allows for Canada and Mexico to import into the U.S. or companies to import in the U.S. with no penalties. So again, it allowed companies to take jobs out of the United States, like factories, move them to Mexico to get cheaper labor, and then import the product with no tariffs and no penalties. So whatever amount of jobs it did create, I'm curious to see if anyone's done any cross-section analysis with how many jobs we lost because of it.
All right. Great questions. Thank you very much, judges. I'm going to go ahead and put 3 minutes, and to the audience member who contributed one of those. I'm going to put 3 minutes on the clock now. It is your time to close. Kay, you go first. Go ahead and put a cherry on it for us. Bring it home.
Okay. Yeah. So in closing, I want to point out a few things. The argument so far against this is that Mexico is unstable. Having unstable neighboring country is detrimental to America. You will be flooded with a lot of illegal immigration. You will be constantly dealing with cartels, and you're going to be constantly having to deal with unrest in a southern country. Through taking the steps to develop a North American Union, we start taking the steps to alleviate these problems and start building up our neighbor to alleviate problems of immigration, cartel, and the drug trade into America. To do nothing is to accept the loss of many American lives and to keep poverty because we're too afraid to take steps forward. Just because we need to travel 500 miles doesn't mean that we shouldn't take the first steps, which we have with NAFTA and the USMCA and our consistent growing trade with Canada and Mexico over China. What I have provided is a lot of facts that support why this could help us and why we've taken steps that have already helped us and why we should expand on this. As I've said before, Europe doesn't, just because America's currency is strong, doesn't mean that every other country has to instantly accept it. BRICS doesn't all share a single currency. The European Union doesn't share a single currency. And I don't think that an American Union would necessarily have to share that. What I have shown is, instead of what ifs and What about these and what about isms? I've provided fact after fact of viable data showing the benefits of the EU has received and related that to how an American Union can start and the benefits we can receive. My stance is clear, is one that supports prosperity through consensual mutual aid, not forced integration, one that sees a rising tide that would lift all boats, one that not only stabilizes and grows America, such as you and I, but spreads it to our neighbor states, creating a more prosperous and safe life for everyone involved. My approach is one that allows growth in ethical ways, that continues to promote the ideals of natural rights, expanded freedoms and liberties in the pursuit of happiness. This trade is not a zero-sum game. It requires cooperation that took us from wandering animals in the forest to being capable of seeing and understanding the farthest reaches of the universe. Even something as simple as a cell phone must be made from metals of mind workers, using tools from other workers, shipped to other workers, assembled by other workers, and ran on software from other workers. It is clear, together trade, we live a more prosperous life. I would like to see a world where the prosperity expands with our ability to connect with others. I want to see a future where we bypass these systems and aren't afraid of taking the steps forward. The future is building bridges, not avoiding them with what ifs.
All right. Good stuff. 3 minutes is on the clock now for you, Searka. The clock starts when you do, sir.
Okay. I think I'll close by saying that while the benefits of EU are there, the European Union are there, it is pretty faulty and a little bit naive to think that the cross-country analysis there, which is probably one of the weakest forms of economic argumentation, can overcome the institutional threshold problem with what we're talking about here between a union of Canada, Mexico, and the US. The monetary issue, monetary sovereignty, and again, the optimum currency theory. I haven't heard any answer on whether or not the shared currency would be safer when it does happen, and how shocks would work, how labor would move. And then there's definitely going to be a massive issue with crisis politics and the legitimacy of them. I mean, even right now we have in the US a very serious problem. And even in a union could be technically possible, it can create reoccurring political conflict. And right now this country seems to have a problem with itself in the United States. I can only imagine how much worse that would get when Mexico is in a union with us as well. And I don't agree with it, but I do think it is a predictable fault line at least. And then we did hear a lot of it gets easier as time goes on. So the integration story, which is very true. If we just assume it is true. It did work out for a lot of the countries in the European Union, but there's no reason to just think that we can just presuppose it in this case. Unfortunately. And we also didn't really get an answer to whether or not different needs, are going to have some sort of policy gridlock. How representation would work within the U.S. Constitution. Do they get the same vote, even though they've contributed far less in terms of wealth? If we're just going to stick to an economic term here, I just don't see those questions being answered at all. I don't see them any reason to presuppose them. So I think I'll just close with that. The integration story isn't good enough for me.
All right. Cheers. Well, there you go, everybody. That's our first debate in the books for the night. Hope everybody enjoyed that. I'm now going to drop the link for the vote into the chat. Anybody else, Jesus, anybody else who's streaming on other platforms? Cassell, I don't know if you're streaming tonight, but go ahead and grab that, drop it into your chat as well, if you would, so everybody who's listening gets the chance to weigh in. And as I said before, it is free. Just click that little link right there and just tell us which side you thought was more persuasive tonight. Now, I'm going to go ahead and look at our judges. We're looking at you first, AlleyCat. Are you ready to render judgment?
Real quick, question.
Oh, yes, sir.
Sorry, real quick. Can you put the link in the
the
got you.
Chat? Yep. Absolutely. Oink. Boink.
I can't remember.
Boink,
We don't
boink.
vote, right? The people who are in the debates.
I mean, I've never actually said anything about it one way or the other. I assumed all of y'all vote for yourselves. And yeah, everybody else who's listening is welcome to vote.
Cancel each other out.
Yeah, exactly. If you vote for yourself, the other person better do the same. So, but yeah, there you go, Lutch. So once again, AlleyCat, it's on you, sir. Ready? Give it to us.
Yeah, sure. So when I hear should we form the union, to me it sounds this is an immediate need. Like this is something we should do now, not something we should do in the future, or maybe it'll be okay later on. And I think that's where the affirmative failed to prove it at this point. The idea is that yes, there can be benefits from them, but right now there's the disparity between countries and with both their laws and their economic status makes it difficult for them to even form treaties, let alone form a nation or form a union. So in that case, I give it 4-6.
4-6 in favor of the negative. So there you go, Searka. That's one judge for you now. Cassell, I hope that you also are ready with your judgment. Everybody out there, make sure you click it. Click, click, click. Go ahead, Cassell. Let us hear it.
Yeah, so I think that based on the prompt, I would agree with AlleyCat, but I gave Kay the benefit of the doubt there because something this large, just realistically would probably have to happen over time. So I didn't really factor that in as much, although I could see how the wording could make it seem more of an immediate type of ordeal. But the way I saw it was that both of you had pretty good openings. I actually was looking forward to this conversation because I didn't really have my mind made up one side or another before this. And when Kay went with his opening first, I was pretty persuaded. And then when Circa went with his opening, it like persuaded me back. So there was really good back and forth there. I think what got me though was kind of the line of questioning, and I asked about NAFTA to Kay because I was hoping that there would be a little bit more in terms of the NAFTA stuff, just because knowing NAFTA, it gets a really bad rap. But um, for example, it makes a lot of things cheaper for the U.S. consumers. So if you make cars in Mexico and you're looking to expand your fleet as a company like UPS or a shipping company, that could help expand and grow jobs in the US. So I was hoping to see a little bit more pushback on some of Circa's points. And I think the biggest thing, even outside of NAFTA, was just that when you talk about the government itself, Circa kind of made a good point that he kept going back to Mexico being unstable. But in his conclusion, he talked about the US kind of being unstable too. So, what if Mexico thinks that the US is going to hell in a handbasket? Is that fair to them or fair to Canada if they get involved with our own bad dealings here? So, I think it was tough. I thought they both did a really good job, but I gave it 7-3 to Circa.
Okay, so that's a 3-7 vote in favor of the negative. Searka is going to be our winner tonight, regardless of what the audience says, but I still want to hear what you guys think, because the points do matter. We keep track and we keep score, and we have a ranking system and a whole 9 yards. So we're going to go ahead and give you all just a couple more seconds to get your votes logged in, and we're going to go ahead and head that direction. Now, I do also want to let everybody know out there that, like I said, we have an open panel after party that happens when this is all done. And just so you guys know, what we do in that time is everybody here who's been muted for this part of the debate is going to go ahead and be able to say the things that they didn't think got said during this debate. We go through each one of those prompts. We give it at least 30 minutes for each prompt, and we do what we can to try to fill in the blanks and kind of discuss and pick it apart, because for those of you who do not know me, I take stupid amounts of notes, and I really want us to get through a lot of this because I've got questions and I've got pushback, and I want to debate every damn one of y'all. So that said, stick around, and unfortunately, like I said, I don't know for sure if Kay's gonna stick around, but just so you know, Kay, we will miss you because we are going to be debating this much further in the after party. But with that said, we're going to go ahead and head over to the voting, and we will see.
Good talk, Kay.
I appreciate it. It was pretty good pushback.
So the voting is locked in and it is tied. So the audience was split decision 50-50. So with that said, the win still goes to you, Searka, but I can't give you that blowout status. So great job from both of y'all. Thank you both very, very much. And again, like I said, Kay, if you do have to dip, I understand, but if you can at least wait till the end of the VOD, that'd be dope. But if not, I get it. So looks like Let's Chief had to run off to go piddle real quick, which is okay because I've got a few things that I need to do here to get the next one set up. But we are going to roll straight into our second debate. I will know. Oh, there's his face, so we know he's done. All right. Then in that case, our next prompt is... up there. Let's see if we can get that to fit just a smidge better. There we go. Now, fun little side note on this particular prompt. Both of the debaters at some point, I heard them both say to someone or someones, am I missing something here? I feel like this is an easy win. So I'm really excited because that means that both of y'all understand your positions well. I'm also going to say that I'm very excited to see these two debaters go at it. I'm always excited about every one of the pairings that I have, but this one in particular is near and dear to my heart. We have Lutch, the Indian Jesus, in the top left corner is the affirmative. And we have Let's Chief, one of our resident judges, in the bottom center, who is going to be on the negative. And the prompt is, the Second Amendment is meaningless if it cannot be used to defend against a tyrannical government. I'm going to read that one more time because the wording is intentional. The Second Amendment is meaningless if it cannot be used to defend against a tyrannical government. So, with that said, everybody tune in, sit down, listen up, and remember, you're going to be voting at the end of this. So everybody take notes. And everybody else who's in the panel, while you're muted, feel free to talk. Feel free to talk to your audiences and stuff like that. Don't talk to us because mute, but whatever. But just remember, in the after party, you guys are going to be discussing these topics with us as well. So you're going to get to weigh in and yell and fucking whatever. So, all right, Mr. Lutch, are you ready, sir?
Yeah, a slight note, I mixed up the formats and I thought we had a 10-minute opening, so I gotta rejigger it, but yes, I am ready.
No worries. Let's Chief, are you prepared with a 10-minute opening as well? Because fuck it, I'll just give you all each. Yeah, no.
They're not going to start the timer, Lutch, until you're ready. So if you want to take a moment,
yeah, if you do need to take a moment,
a little bit,
and I'm able to sit here and just,
that's totally fine. It's totally fine.
Yep.
I'll make two.
All right, cool.
And worst case scenario, we'll again. All right.
And remember, when it actually gets to the clock, I'm going to hold my finger up. About 15 seconds later, you get the 15 after that, you get this, and then, like I said, you try to get there as quickly as you can. But again, I'm going to do my best to not interrupt y'all when you're cooking. So, all right, Lutch, 3 minutes is on the clock, sir. Give us that opening. It'll start when you are ready.
All right, so this is not about whether violence is good or if guns are dangerous or whether or not modern society is different from the time of the revolution. It's about the specific question whether the Second Amendment is meaningless if it cannot be used to defend against a tyrannical government. And of course, the answer is yes. If that function is removed, the amendment still becomes meaningless in substance, even if the words still make a complete sentence. We have to go by the text itself. What does it say? A well-regulated militia being necessary to the security of a free state, the right of the people to keep and bear arms shall not be infringed. The first clause is not decorative. It's explanatory, and it tells us why we have the right. It's specifically the security of a free state, not personal enjoyment, not even public safety. A free state is not threatened by deer, even if every car on a Jersey highway definitely is, nor is it threatened by burglars and gangbangers, but it is threatened by concentration of power, especially the military and political authority. This is the exact concern and why it's there. It was ratified less than a decade after the Revolutionary War, a revolution that was illegal, violent, and was directed against the lawful government of the time. The very people who wrote the amendment did this very thing. Of course, the militias don't talk about standing armies. They are comprised of the people themselves, armed in their private capacity. The standing armies were seen as oppression, and the militias were the opposite, or the counterweight. So Madison was explicit in the Federalist Papers that it is a deterrent against federal overreach. It's not symbolic; it is practical. It rested on the understanding that ultimate force did not belong exclusively to the state. So this gets to what meaning is. I expect my opponent to focus on this and likely argue that even if the Second Amendment cannot be used against tyranny, it still has some meaning, perhaps hunting or sport or something else. But the constitutional meaning is not whether a right can be repurposed and whether we can change the words around and still get a sentence. It's about the function. A broken fire extinguisher still exists, but is meaningless as a fire extinguisher if it is broken. A vote that doesn't affect outcomes exists, but is meaningless. And similarly, the Second Amendment, without being able to fight tyranny, is meaningless. Some will argue that the we'll skip that. If the government gets to decide when resistance is allowed against itself, then the resistance simply will never be allowed. A right that cannot be exercised when only be exercised when the government approves is not a right; it's a permission. Perhaps the argument is that modern democracy, courts, and elections and all that stuff make it obsolete, but those are not self-enforcing. All of that stuff has to have the threat of violence behind it. Second Amendment was never meant to be the first line of defense. It was meant to be the last. It is not the, let's skip that. Deterrence only works if the possibility of resistance is real. A government that knows a right can never be exercised has no reason to fear that right. Let me be clear. None of this is an endorsement of violence. It's the opposite. The entire purpose of deterrence is to present it. To strip the amendment of the core function while claiming it still has meaning is to preserve the shell while emptying it of substance and, dare I say, its meaning.
All right, good stuff. 2 minutes is on the clock for you now, Chief. Yeah, no, well done. You were fighting yourself on that one. So, 2 minutes is on the clock, Chief. Go ahead and cross-examine when you're ready.
The founding fathers, despite obviously believing in the right for people to engage in, declaring their own independence from a tyrannical government, when they set up the government, did they make it like a pathway for secession or rebellion, or did they outlaw it?
Did they give a specific pathway, or I actually don't know if there's a specific pathway, but that is exactly what our country is.
Right. Our country is founded on that, yet they did not allow for a legal pathway for that to exist, right?
Right.
And then,
but if it's only what's legal, then, as I said in the opening, if we can only go by what's legal, then the revolution would have never happened.
Sure.
Is that a good thing? Or is that a bad thing?
Can you cite any court case that upheld that individuals could lawfully attack government agents based on personal judgments of tyranny?
No.
And then are amendments exhaustive lists of everything you could do with a right?
Say that again?
Is an amendment an exhaustive list of everything that you could use a right for?
No.
Okay. Let's see. See if there's anything else I have. I think that might be most of my questions for now. Oh, actually, who decides when a government has become tyrannical?
The people vote.
If they vote on it, how do they vote on it?
Well, either through our institutional systems, or if everybody decides F this, we're not doing this, then that's what the Second Amendment is explicitly for. To the security of a free state.
So
when the free state is not secure,
fail, right?
Mm-hmm. Okay.
All right. 3 minutes is on the clock now for your opening, Chief. No, it's not. Now it is. Go ahead and start when you're ready.
The value of our rights is not solely derived from the most extreme fringe uses, and the Second Amendment helps secure our population in normal everyday life, not just in rebellion or treason, which the Constitution explicitly rejects as a right. The Second Amendment was written with militias overtly mentioned, which were actually organized by state governments at the time. but it has proven to mean much more than that. Whether we're talking about hunters who in rural low-income states like West Virginia harvested more than 60 million pounds of wild game between 2012 and 2017, with about 3/4 of the total deer harvest taken with guns, or if we're talking about the ability for people to protect themselves, their family, and their communities, with annual self-defense gun uses occurring tens of thousands of times per year. That's just kind of speaks for itself. All things considered, the affirmative argument is actually a false dilemma. Either the Second Amendment allows violent resistance to the government, which again, the Constitution itself rejects and no case law supports, or the Second Amendment has no purpose at all, which ignores every other legitimate, lawful use protected by the amendment. When we discuss whether or not the Second Amendment can be used to defend against a tyrannical government, we can mean two things. Is it legal, and are we capable? Legally speaking, violent resistance to the state is prohibited. There is no court case granting the right to start shooting because of perceived tyranny, because we legally cannot use our Second Amendment rights against our perception of a tyrannical government. Would you say that right now the Second Amendment is and always has been meaningless, and there would be nothing lost if the population was disarmed? The second legs, are we capable? If we skip over the fact that institutions, like let's just say through voting, for example, more frequently and effectively defend against the government becoming tyrannical, civilian firearms just really aren't a realistic check on a modern military state. Did you mean that we should be capable of competing on an equal level in military engagement with more high-tech arms capable of far greater destruction? I'd argue that question lacks validity. So if by being capable, we're just asking if we have the ability to shoot back if unjustly aggressed upon, then any right to keep and bear arms gives us that ability. Even though violent resistance to the state is prohibited, the text of our Second Amendment reads, "A well-regulated militia being necessary to the security of a free state, the right of the people to keep and bear arms shall not be infringed." There's a lot of contention about the level of adherence to that text and how to interpret or apply some of it, but we all understand the Second Amendment in shorthand to mean our right to bear arms. If you find the right to bear arms to be meaningless under any particular condition, that to me says it would make no difference if you disarm the population or remove the right altogether. And unless my opponent can conclude that the population would be no worse off being disarmed under any of these conditions you describe as meaningless, you would actually agree with me that the Second Amendment has meaning far beyond the fringe case of participating in a revolution.
All right, good stuff. 2 minutes on the clock now, Lutch. Go ahead and hit him back.
Yeah, okay. I feel like, well, obviously, you wrote your opening before I talked, but I maybe, I was going through pretty quickly. Maybe I skipped something, but I feel like I addressed all of that. The militia is explicitly a different thing than standing armies. The whole thing about hunting that wasn't even brought up until almost 1800 with the English game laws. And the fact that we are talking about the revolution that was illegal, but that is, and again, that is why they put that in there. And so again, the line being, if we can only overthrow the government when the government says we can overthrow the government, I think that's going to work out pretty well in the government's
Did
way.
I say that? It sounds like you're just repeating your intro instead of asking me questions. Do you have anything about my intro that you'd like to inquire about?
So what is the relevance of legality if we're specifically talking about laws that are tyrannical?
What is the relevance of legality? What do you mean?
Why is it? You were talking about how the Constitution doesn't say that it's legal to do this, but it specifically states to the sanctity of a free, the security of a free state. So that is not a legal thing. If we decide as the people that the government is doing stuff that they passed into law, that is tyrannical.
Well, a free state involves stability with like the rule of law and like predictability and like protection of rights for everybody, right? So that doesn't mean just like declaring tyranny on your own and using force against officials. Like it doesn't matter the legality. That's just like not how you solve things. And like
right, exactly. The legality doesn't matter because that's specifically what we're talking about.
Right. That's fine.
Okay, and so you're talking about, oh, you can't fight the government with this with the level of arms. And again, as I stated, this is it's not necessarily meant to say, all right, we got to arm up, we got to fight the
No, that's
government. It's
fine.
the
But you're
deterrent.
saying like over like the entire history of the country, there's like no time in it would have been
I did
just to
not
actually
speak any
fight
of those types
against
of words.
the country. Exactly,
I
because
never,
you
I
can't.
made
And
no declarative
even in
all every
instances
kind
where
of statement.
like police will kind of like go in like a no knock warrant on the wrong address, when they uphold people's rights, it's not their right to shoot at the government for doing a tyranny and using their power the wrong way. It's just that
Yeah,
there's
I
a
agree with that.
reasonable use of their self-defense.
Yeah, totally agreed. That doesn't mean that there is never a situation where the government is being tyrannical and the people need to overthrow it.
Yeah, no,
Are you
that's totally fine. So even if that was,
okay?
even
So
if it
that's
was,
my point.
but that doesn't defeat anything, I don't think.
I mean, you can think whatever you want, but I think that I think that it does. So there we go. I don't know what you want from me.
So let's say like it's fine that it doesn't matter whether it's like legally permissible to shoot at officials or whatever.
Yes.
Sorry, train of thought.
Because I feel like you're coming at this from a situation or from a perspective, and I'm speculating, so correct me if I'm wrong. Feels like you're coming from a place of the most recent ICE and CBP and stuff that
No,
these
like
people.
think about like the Bundys. Like they were standing up against what they thought was federal tyranny, and they were fucking criminally convicted, and some of them fucking died for it.
Hmm. What is it? Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
And then what's the substance? What is the relevance to the 2A being meaningless? There. I feel like you're just saying things.
What do you mean? I was just saying things, bro.
So you're saying a thing, and there's no argument there. But so then I'll go back to the deterrence argument that if we don't have that, deterrence, that the people can rise up. It's not meant to say, "Oh, we can beat you." It's meant to say,
And so
"It's going to get real bad. It's going to get real bad."
It was zoning laws
Okay,
that
so
the Bundys decided to,
you're
try
saying
to take
in
up
this
arms
situation it was bad, therefore it's always bad.
against.
That's not how logic works.
We just use an example to kind of build off of. Is
Okay,
okay
that's
to
a
talk
bad
about
example because I think you and I would agree that the Bundys did not
It's a
have.
bad example.
Wait,
Okay,
the Bundys.
go ahead.
The Bundys? Ted Bundy
Yeah.
was a.
No, not Ted
You mean the
Bundy.
Minette? Okay, well, I don't
Out of like Nevada. It was like
Okay, not
Amon
familiar.
Bundy or some shit like that.
No, okay, not that familiar. But I mean, again, even if you look at Waco, like that didn't work out well for the people at Waco. And let's put the child stuff aside and just focus on the 2A stuff. The idea is that the idea is that the bad stuff is going to happen when the government tries to overreach.
Right, and it's
so what is that?
but who
Why
decides
is that?
Is it unfair zoning laws with the Bundys?
That's a great question. That's a
is it too
fantastic
many
question and a
executive
very
orders?
deep. That's a very nuanced conversation debate that
But
needs to
that
be had, and I
matters.
think I absolutely agree. But that's not
Is
what
it
the
too much
contention is.
taxes?
So again, that is a very interesting conversation that
Is
has
it
to be
being
had
denied a
about where the
permit?
line is. But you are saying that there is no
I'm
line.
pointing out the absurdity of the tyranny.
No, you're pointing out a single example. You're purposely strawmanning.
just
Well,
listed like 6
you should be
things.
this. Yeah, right. And I would
Those
disagree
all
with
could be
with all of
perceived
those
as
things being
tyranny.
right. But that doesn't mean that
Those-
somebody. Do you
Go ahead, say it.
understand that because person A says this is tyranny,
Yes.
and we
Yes.
all agree that
Please
it's not
finish.
tyranny, that a situation could genuinely be tyranny.
So I agree that a lot
Yes,
of people would see a lot of things as tyranny, and we agree that most of it you should not
Right.
use force to
Correct.
respond to.
Correct.
So even though it's tyranny, like there's no it's just absurd to respond with force to these things. So it's also like a double standard on the test, like to say that if the second, unless the Second Amendment allows armed resistance to tyranny, it has no meaning. Like you're appealing to the legality while saying you can't appeal to the legality also. There's like kind of two things. You're like having your cake and eating it too.
No, I didn't appeal to legality. I appealed to practicality. that practically the government will see that it's really bad if we try to overreach. Not that, oh, the people are automatically going to take up arms and, we are going to send the F-35s and whatever, and we're going to lose. That's not what I'm saying. You're strawmanning what I'm saying. That is not what I'm saying. You're trying to get past you're trying to get to another part of the longer conversation. But
do you agree with my characterization that if you found the right to bear arms to be meaningless under any particular condition, being that you couldn't use it against an oppressive government, that would make no difference if you disarm the population and remove the right altogether? Is that what you mean by meaningless?
If we remove, sorry,
I'll say it again if you want. Yeah.
Yeah, but
if you found the right to bear arms to be meaningless under any particular condition, like, not being able to shoot at a tyrannical government, in my opinion, that says that, to me says that it would make no difference if you disarmed the population or removed the right altogether. So do you agree with that kind of definition of being meaningless?
No, because there's a difference between 2A and the right to bear arms and the right to use those arms.
You keep appealing. Rights? Can you point to the
no, but you keep appealing to people
no, you
misusing
can't point to the separate right. That it's the same right, correct?
To keep and bear arms. Where does it keep and bear arms?
Right, correct?
Yeah, it falls under 2A, but
okay. So as far as being meaningless, if you can't use it against a tyrannical government,
doesn't mean you should.
Doesn't mean you should. To me, it says it doesn't make a difference whether or not that population has guns. Do you
okay? Can you explain that line? If I'm saying you should be able to, in the obviously the most extreme and true examples, there are situations that could exist where tyrannical government requires people to stand up. How does that go against what you just said?
They don't have to be like multiple things could be true at the same time. But you're saying
okay, maybe I'm stupid.
Like the prompt is that you're saying it's meaningless if you can't do that. And I'm saying that there's plenty of reasons why we have gun rights other than the niche condition to shoot at the government. I know that you're focused on that because of the overt wordage being the only thing that, like, the most glaring, blatant thing that jumps out at you. But, the law preserves our gun right through
if you want
the Second Amendment in other ways.
If you want to take a W, that you could change the words around and 2A still is an English sentence.
It's what we use it for. It's how we've used it in law. Like it just.
So I reject that notion. I reject that notion of meaningless because we're talking about the substance, and you're trying to say it has a different meaning, but it's not this meaning. No, I go back to the fire extinguisher thing. The fire extinguisher doesn't not. No, wait. Can I just finish though? So going back to the fire extinguisher thing, the fire extinguisher example I gave, the a broken fire extinguisher. It still exists, but functionally, as a way to extinguish a fire, it does not do that. And I am saying the same thing happens if you undercut the sanctity of the free state with 2A.
I just think it's not parallel because fire extinguisher has a sole purpose. You're reading only the words that are in front of you, even though you've already acknowledged in this conversation the multiple
can you give me a better
gun rights we have outside of the the need
so
to shoot
yeah, obviously it's not one-to-one. Do you have an example of something that would be a little bit closer?
I don't think we need to even go to that because you're saying that you agree that the Second Amendment enshrines our gun rights for other reasons other than to shoot at the government. And I'm saying that if you say something is meaningless, like the Second Amendment is meaningless, the right to bear arms is meaningless, it doesn't matter whether or not you take it away. So I understand that you're saying that if we can't, use them against a tyrannical government, in my mind, to call that meaningless, you're saying that you might as well not have the right to bear arms at that point. And I think you're rejecting that because of the obvious reasons that it's not meaningless.
I think that you're carving out this definition of meaningless that is more.
What is meaning? Tell me what meaningless means to you then.
So in this context, the meaning is fulfilling the function that was initially intended. So that is the meaning of 2A, is to fulfill what it says in 2A. And so if you can't do part of 2A, then it is no longer 2A. Right?
I think you're the one trying to make a carve out.
Okay, which carve out would that be?
The carve out is you're saying 2A could only exclusively be for use against a tyrannical government, even though you've already acknowledged.
I literally never said that.
2A.
I literally never said that. I said it's not only about the other things that I mentioned. It's not only about hunting. It's not only about self-defense. It's not only about criminal. It is about the sanctity of a free state. And so if you take that out, then all of those things, even though there's multiple factors,
a free state isn't in a constant state of revolution and insurrection. There's stability.
And again, that's a perfectly fun conversation to have if you want to have it. But that is that's an offshoot of the basic notion of, is it still what we say it is if it doesn't have all the parts? I agree with you that it has many different parts, and I'm saying that all of those parts are necessary for the whole to be the whole.
So
if it's not,
if
you take out one of the parts,
individuals shouldn't have gun rights unless they're through militias organized by state governments, subject to training and discipline and under a command. And
no, I'm not saying that. But can you?
Oh.
I'm not saying.
Well, that's
that. Can
what
you
the
tell me why you thought I was?
No, I mean, you were just going by the text, so I thought you wanted to go by the text. So I'm letting you know what the text says, and now it seems like you were trying to just.
You think I'm saying that people should not have the right to bear arms? That's your honest reading of what I've said so far?
I'm showing you how.
I didn't think so. Come on, brother.
Come on, brother.
Yeah, it sounds like you just want to take away people's guns, as I'm actively arguing that people should be having guns and making sure that the free state has its sanctity.
Be super literal with the language, because if you're super literal with the language,
you mean like you're trying to be with meaningless?
Yeah, if you're saying it's meaningless, that means it's like, why should we have it to defend our homes? Exactly. That's a fucking stupid thing to say.
It's very important that we have that part. Exactly. That's my argument. It's very important that we have all the parts of it.
No, you're saying that without the specific part of shooting against a tyrannical government, it's fine. If it's just hunting,
I literally, bro,
self-defense.
I'm
going by the prompt. If you're saying you disagree with the prompt and you agree with me that it needs to have
you're agreeing with me.
Then fine.
You're agreeing with me.
All right, and I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to jump in there now. Because we do have some questions from the judges again. Several, in fact. This is as interesting of a topic as I hoped it would be. So we're going to look minutes on the clock. Once again, I'm going to go back and forth kind of between you guys and sort of ask you guys questions. Indian Jesus, you first. So would it have been valid for the Japanese Americans to use force or use the Second Amendment against the government during World War II and the Japanese internment? Would it have been valid for the Japanese Americans to take arms against the tyrannical government during World War II and the Japanese imprisonment?
What was this? Would it be, what was the specific word? Would it be legal, moral?
Would it be valid?
Valid. So I mean, I think that argument could be made. But I do think again that the notion of whether a specific example is different than the basic prompts. But I don't think we would necessarily, outside of being Americans and like, let's say we transport that to a different country, like we see all over the place, and we see people fighting back. We see armed rebellions that our government backs and stuff. So I mean that's kind of what that's for.
Okay. Now a minute on the clock for you, Chief.
Glad they didn't. But
Chief, have there been successful uprisings against the government in other countries without the use of arms? Sorry, I choked up a little there. Let me try that again. Have there been successful uprisings against governments in other countries without the use of arms?
I'm sure even pitchforks could do it, sure.
Okay. Don't even have to start the clock on that one. Indian Jesus, back to you. Can you think of any way to make arms illegal for tyranny, but legal for anything else?
Illegal for tyranny, but legal for anything else. I think that I mean, my initial thought is no. But I think that goes back to the notion of the definition of tyranny comes from the government itself. So the government making something legal, it's about the actions, not really the thing. So a soft no.
Okay, no worries. We like it soft. Now, Chief, you had mentioned the fact that that it is not legal or legally codified to overthrow the U.S. government. Do you know of any country that it has been made legal to overthrow the government?
Horseradish stand.
All right, cheers. Yeah, in my country, it is based to overthrow the government. Okay, looks like we have.
What I was getting at that was basically like if any sort of act in any way of using arms against a tyrannical government was codified in any way throughout American history or any history for that matter. And I don't think we got to that at all.
Okay. Let's see. All right, we do have a question. This one is for you, Jesus. Do red flag laws still fulfill or abide by the Second Amendment? Do you believe that red flag laws are okay under the guise of the Second Amendment?
Shall not be infringed.
Good. Once again, I like these answers that I don't even have to start the clock. I think. Chief, one more question for you. Like I said, lots of questions on this one. Let's Chief, do you believe that the American Revolution should not have occurred?
No, it definitely should have occurred. And yeah, it's a good place to be. I just don't think that, the Second Amendment is only valid or meaningful because of the reason to shoot at a tyrannical government.
Agreed.
Okay. All right. And I think the chat had one question for you as well. Let me take a look. I think I saw something. Yes. So for Let's Chief, this is from one of our other regular judges, Ancom. Shout out Ancom. Do you believe that in this context, pitchforks would count as taking up arms against the government?
Like if you what if you just
the actual wording of the amendment is that you are legally allowed to keep and bear arms in protection of a tyrannical or in protection of a free state. You said the conversation was brought up about being able to do it without guns, and you said something to the effect of, we've still got pitchforks. Would that not still count as taking up arms against the government?
Yeah, but I don't think there's a restriction on the right to own pitchforks.
But to use them to defend yourself against a tyrannical government, I think, was the question. But that's okay. All right, so I'm going to go ahead and put 3 minutes on the clock now. We're going to go to you, Lutch. You can use some more of your opening if you need to for your closing. Yeah. But go ahead and start whenever you're ready. The clock will go with you.
Yeah, so I mean, I think essentially what I did lay out is what I was able to show, that the Second Amendment is a collection of things, and if you take away those parts, then it is not that thing. So again, I would never say that we should not have guns. People shouldn't have that anything like that. Yeah, a free state is, I like this paragraph, so I'm going to read it. A free state is not threatened by deer, even if every car on a Jersey highway definitely is, nor is it threatened by burglars and gangbangers. It is threatened by concentrations of power, especially centralized military and political authority. And then... the militias referenced in the amendment were not state-controlled standing armies. They were comprised of the people themselves, armed in their private capacity. That distinction mattered deeply to the founders. Standing armies were seen as instruments of oppression. Citizen militias were seen as a counterweight. James Madison made this explicitly clear in the Federalist Papers, number 46, where he described an armed populace as a deterrent. Again, the notion of taking away the guns because we're not going to use it in this particular way doesn't pass the sniff test, because the deterrent needs to be there. It's not a symbolic thing; it's a practical thing. It rested on the understanding that the ultimate force, the ultimate legal force, they may have a monopoly, but the ultimate force, period, did not belong to the state. Yeah, again, broken fire extinguisher, it still exists, but is meaningless as a fire extinguisher. A vote that never affects outcomes still exists, but is meaningless as a democratic right. In the same way, 2A that cannot serve as a safeguard against tyranny still exists, but it is meaningless. And of course, 2A protects all the other ones. This didn't come up, but somebody could say that it would be about modern democracy, courts, and all that stuff. But again, those are not self-regulating. It's at the end of the day, it's all about at the nose of a gun. And again, none of this is an endorsement of violence. It is the opposite. Okay. Well, yeah. So when we ask whether the Second Amendment is meaningless without the ability to resist tyranny, the answer depends on what we think meaning is. If meaning is a symbolic comfort, then sure, I can see that you can reword 2A and still find a syntactical English sentence. I guess big L there for me if that's what we're going. But if meaning is the capacity to fulfill the purpose explicitly stated in the text, the security of a free state, aka the substance of the question of this debate, then the answer to the question is obviously no. Without fighting tyranny, 2A is meaningless. And yeah, I mean, we all the things again about that's a common thing that the militia is a state militia. No, it's not. Hunting, all that stuff, part of 2A, but not the only thing. And of course, as Horseradish asked before, if revolutions needed to be legalized, there would never be any. And I can see my time, but
no worries. Good job. All right, so let's Chief. 3 minutes on the clock for your closing, sir. Go ahead and start whenever you're ready.
All right. Again, the prompt was the Second Amendment is meaningless if it cannot be used to defend against a tyrannical government. We're asking if the amendment and the right protected still has meaning, not if the simple words on the page are fulfilled. When it comes to gun rights being meaningful outside of armed resistance, we heard about the millions of pounds of meat harvested by hunters using firearms. And we heard about the tens of thousands of defensive gun uses that occur each year. And Letch agrees that these are essential parts of the right to bear arms. Even in cases where police are wrong, mistaken, unannounced, or even engaging in blatantly illegal activity, the law does not treat shooting those officers as a legal right. Yet the Second Amendment remains central to American law. This fact alone proves that the meaning of the Second Amendment does not depend on the ability to violently resist the state, but on protecting our right to lawful self-defense. Most government tyranny is mundane, legalistic, and procedural, and no one in good faith and in their right mind thinks armed resistance is an appropriate response to mundane inconvenience. A constitutional right doesn't become meaningless just because violence is the wrong tool for most abuses of power. The affirmative argument again presents a false dilemma. Either the Second Amendment allows violent resistance to the government, which no case law throughout our history recognizes as a right, or the Second Amendment has no purpose at all, which ignores every other legitimate, lawful use protected by the same amendment. There are multiple modern examples, such as the armed standoffs involving the Bundy family in Nevada and Oregon, where participants were charged under federal law for using force against government agents executing lawful duties. Courts and statutes treat this conduct as criminal, not as constitutionally protected rights to take up arms against perceived tyranny. Private citizens retaining a legal right to wage violence against their own government is not necessary to the security of a free state, or at the very least, it should not be assumed. In my opinion, it has not been proven. Security implies preservation, not destruction of the constitutional order. In a system where anyone can declare tyranny and open fire is not a free state, it's a failed state.
All right. That was babe. Both of y'all had some powerful shit there, so I am not envious of the judges. Yeah, great stuff, y'all. All right. So once again, as always, audience, we're going to go ahead and drop that into the chat. Please click it and vote, because I have this weird suspicion this one in particular is going to end up in a tie between the judges. Call me, I could be wrong. We'll see. But you guys are probably going to be the deciding factor on this one. And that would be where my money would be. So we went to AlleyCat first last time. We're going to go to Cassell this time first. So Cassell, are you ready to go ahead and drop your decision on us?
I think so.
All right.
I think so.
Good luck, sir.
I didn't want to go first because I agree. I think I want it to kind of be the decider if AlleyCat went for Lutch or went for Chief, and I would go the other way because it was that close. But my mind was swayed during the main conversation towards the end. I think the whole time, and I thought about this last time with Chief's argument, that I liked it, but he just did not do a good enough job of defending his argument. And he did the same thing this time until he came up with the whole meaningless structure. And that's why I asked Lutch about red flag laws, because Lutch said that the reason why the Second Amendment wasn't being fulfilled was because if you take one piece away, then it doesn't work anymore. And when I asked about red flag laws, Lutch said that he didn't believe that was appropriate and fulfilling the Second Amendment. But I don't think anybody would call that unconstitutional. I mean, they exist today. They're considered constitutional in certain states. And so I think if you don't believe that's the case and fulfills the Second Amendment today, I don't believe that you would think that it's also meaningless today. And so that's where Chief won it over for me. So 6-4. 6-4 to Chief.
6-4 to Chief. All right. Well, now we're going to go over to AlleyCat and see where you landed. What did you think, Alley?
Well, again, this was definitely very close and very passionate, and I thought that was great. It was back and forth. I had to really put my own personal bias aside and discuss the arguments, because and personal biases went one way, and yet I think it was made super close. I think one of the big issues or flaws was the whole idea of the legality argument. As stated in the question and answer, this doesn't exist anywhere. I don't believe that the legal argument is meaningful at all. Just because every government makes revolution illegal, and I will agree that if it gets to that point, it is a failed state. But that's the whole purpose of the Second Amendment, is to allow that to become a failed state. And so the legal argument was what I think was what pushed it. Like I was really struggling with the whole meaningful thing, and the whole idea that it had to have self-defense, that self-defense was also a meaningful aspect of the Second Amendment, even without that. But if you have a tyrannical government, then the self-defense is against that. So I mean, it still incorporates self-defense. If you end up with a tyrannical government. So again, it being close, I'll give Cassell his wish. I'm going to go 6-4 here.
6-4 for the Aff. Okay. Well,
Yep.
There you go. Like I said,
Right.
it just as I expected, it is going to fall into the lap of the audience. Now, I was a little bit slow on getting Lutch the link there, so I'm going to sit here and just kind of let my mouth jack for a second and say that once again,
Don't
just
let
like
an audience do too much work.
right, VPN. No, so I do want to say that as has already been acknowledged a couple of times, that was an absolutely great debate. Not that the first one wasn't. The first one was amazing as well, but you guys lived up to exactly what I was hoping to see from this. So I appreciate both of y'all for that and for showing up on this. So chat, please go ahead and click on that, because it matters. And over there in Lutch's chat, I can't imagine which direction you guys are going to vote. So Chief, you might be up against it here, bud. We'll see. All right, we're going to go ahead and just 1, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, lock it in, and the results. Fuck. Oh, I said locked it in. Somebody just squeezed one more in, but unfortunately, when I said lock it in, it was tied. So we're going to have to give this one a tie. Yep, we're going to have to give this one a tie.
Oh.
I know.
Radish, you can just be the tiebreaker.
Nope. I only
Isn't
get
it the
I only
second
get
tie
one
ever?
vote. Yes, this is the second tie ever. And actually, wasn't Let's Chief involved in the first tie? Yeah, the first tie ever was Let's Chief against Tyler, and then now Let's Chief against Lutch. This is fun stuff. So, one more time, that's Cassell 4-6, AlleyCat 6-4, and the audience 5-5. Though you guys are welcome to keep voting because it's too late now, and it just it makes you feel better. So, anyways, all right. Well, shit. That's a lot to come down from. That's a lot to come back after. So I'm definitely hoping that that everybody is going to get to vote on this next one. And who do we have? We have Gorps and Cypher. So you guys are definitely coming in after it here. So I am confident you guys are going to bring it. Cypher is new to the community, and just so you know, he is no longer a streamer, but I'm going to try and get his socials for you guys later. As soon as we are done, I will put everybody's socials into the chat so that we can, give the love where it deserves. So last prompt of the night, everybody. Last debate. We have he's no longer in the bottom left corner because Kay had to leave. So underneath AlleyCat, to my that way is Cypher defending the no, you're the negative. Gorps, you're first. Gorps is on the affirmative. Sorry, I'm an amateur. Gorps up above me is on the affirmative, and this guy here, Cypher, is going to be on the negative. The prompt is term limits should be implemented on all elected and appointed government positions. One more time, that is term limits should be implemented on all elected and appointed government positions. I have 3 minutes on the clock. You guys have both seen the format. Gorps, you've done this before, but I assume you don't have any questions. Cypher, you see how we do it? Cool. Then in that case, 3 minutes is on the clock for you, Gorps. Start the clock when you're ready.
All right. First point is term limits prevent power from becoming too concentrated at any level of government. When somebody holds the same position for decades, they become far more likely to be beholden to donors, lobbyists, and political insiders, and far less accountable to the people. Term limits break that cycle and make room for leaders that are actually connected to the communities they serve. Term limits also broaden representation within government. They create space for new voices, new perspectives, and new leadership styles. That constant renewal brings fresh ideas and prevents the kind of bureaucratic stagnation that develops when the same individuals occupy the same role for decades. Term limits also help build public trust. When people see the same person in the same office, whether it be elected or appointed, when they see that same person in the same office for 20, 30, 40 years, or when that person is 90 years old, with little to show for it, if anything, they stop believing that the government is responsive to them. At a certain point, long-term officials start to feel untrustworthy and unaccountable to the people. Leadership in a democracy should belong to the people, not to bureaucrats or corporate-funded lifetime incumbents. I would also say on that point that when people trust the government, we have a higher amount of social cohesion in general in society. We have less people creating crazy conspiracy theories. We have less people protesting and doing all of the shit that just tends to cause problems in society. We also already accept the principle of term limits being important when it comes to the most powerful office in this country, being the presidency. We recognize that the term limits are necessary to prevent a dangerous concentration of power at the highest level. It's only logical to then apply that same safeguard to other powerful positions within our country. Overall, they protect our democracy from stagnation, corruption, and entrenched power. They keep the government accountable, dynamic, and focused on the people, not on donors, insiders, or careerist interests. That's all I got.
All right. I'm going to put 2 minutes on the clock now for you, Cypher. Use this time to poke any holes in what he said or ask any questions to set any trap for your openings. But ultimately, if you want to, you can just talk. It's your time. So go ahead and start the clock whenever you start talking.
All right. So Gorps Inc.
My question to you is, isn't most of the things that you listed, creating space for new voices, bureaucratic malaise, life-term incumbents, and the like, also handled by having and ensuring that elections are themselves competitive?
I think that there's plenty that can be done to make elections competitive, but we're not just talking about elected officials here. We're talking also about appointed people.
But the prompt is all elected positions and
All
appointed
positions
people.
and appointed people.
Yes.
Exactly. You're only
Yes.
talking about half the prompt, and I don't think that making elections more competitive alone fixes the issue because of things like name recognition and huge amounts of corporate donors, APAC donors. All these things are
Those are
effectively
separate
not going
issues
to make these
from term
elections
limits, though.
fair.
Those are sorry, I didn't mean to talk over you. Those are different problems than having no term limits, because those positions would still exist with
I agree with you, and competitive
so
elections
it's
are
not
also different than a term limit issue. I think that we need term
right.
limits
So
and competitive elections.
but you're not. But even if you have a competitive elections, you still have the issues with APAC funding, like you mentioned. You still have the corporate donors issue.
Term limits.
All those things still exist with term limits. They're instead of a person being able to build their own power outside of those corporate interests and things like that through establishing expertise within the congressional district or Senate, president, whatever the case may be, courts. We can go through the gamut. Instead of being able to build their own expertise and power outside of those, they are now more reliant, especially in elected positions, in order to be able to get to the position in the first place. Would you disagree with some of that?
I would disagree with that. I think that there's a higher likelihood for people to be able to break through all of that funding, especially when governments support the ability for them to do that. For example, Seattle has a fund funded for by the taxpayer, where the taxpayer can say, I want to give X amount of money to this candidate, and they don't actually have to pay for it. The government pays for it. This is one way that people can break through all that funding, but ultimately there's more opportunity for somebody to break it when you're kicking somebody that's been there for too long out.
All right. We're going to go ahead and put 3 minutes on the clock now for you, Cypher. This is your actual opening. So once again, clock starts when you do.
All right. At a base, term limits for elected officials is anti-liberal and anti-democratic, as it limits the people's ability to have a say in their government in a representative democracy, which the United States is at its core. While the Founding Fathers did not want direct democracy, they wanted a strong representative democracy, one which the House of Representatives itself most closely hewed to the passions of the public. Creating term limits for Congress itself would be a violation of the foundational principles of American democracy. But let's assume you do not care what the founders wanted. After all, there are just a bunch of racist people who thought that the peculiar institution that dominated the South existed was a fine compromise, slavery. Not only that, the Senate was less democratic at the founding until the 17th Amendment. Or maybe you support the 22nd Amendment, which established term limits for the presidency. Let's start with the 22nd Amendment. I also support this due to the immense power vested in the presidency. But the question is not should we have term limits at all, it's should we have it for all elected positions and government appointees. Moving back to the 17th Amendment, let's explore the reason why it was changed in the first place. To keep it brief, the 17th Amendment was established because one Nelson Aldrich of Connecticut, due to his immense wealth and connections within the Republican Party, managed to buy his seat and become a national party boss for the Republican Party. Curious how we are dealing with this problem again in a different form, isn't it now? While we deal with this problem in a different form, I would argue that I would argue that unelected party bosses is not one of them, because elected officials are able to gain power over time through the development of expertise. Expertise, that is the operative word here. Expertise is only gained over time, and term limits will move the expertise away from elected and accounted officials to unelected party bosses and bureaucrats, back to money interest in a way that is even worse than what we experience today. Power moves away from the people to oligarchs, just like it was with the Senate prior to the 17th Amendment. It's for these reasons, keeping true to our democratic principles, creating expertise in politics with people who are accountable to the people, and mitigating power concentration in wealth, that I oppose placing term limits on all elected and appointed positions.
All right. 2 minutes is on the clock for you, Gorps. Cross-examine as you see fit.
Okay, so you said that you support term limits for the presidency. Why is that?
Term limits for the presidency exist basically because of the immense power that the presidency holds, and that is because Congress has ceded power to the presidency over time. Should the president go back to what the founders intended and being more of a chief magistrate rather than a chief executive, CEO, then I would probably be less against less for.
So do you think the Supreme Court holds immense power as well?
I do believe the Supreme Court holds immense power, but again,
so would you agree with term limits there?
But again, we are not talking about just.
I just asked you a question.
Well, I would say that rather than there being term limits, because there is currently one term limit, you're just there for life, establish some sort of age cap or maybe just a term itself, then you would have your thing. But I guess that amounts to the same thing.
Okay, what about Congress?
Congress, no. Congress should not have term limits.
They don't have immense power?
I would expect. No, each individual person in Congress does not hold immense power. You can make arguments that the House, the Speaker of the House does, and the Senate, the head of the Senate party that's in charge has power. But every individual member has already the powers diffused across the entire body through appointments to different committees and the like, as well as other things.
Every member of Congress has immense power, especially when a huge amount of their votes come down to just a couple votes separating whether something passes or not. That gives every single member the immense power in choosing what happens to our country. You're just wrong on that front.
I completely disagree.
But how exactly does a term limit equal power go to oligarchs? Because right now, everybody is bought off. Pretty much every single person in our government is bought off. Our appointed officials are beholden to their donors because they want to make more money on the side. Everybody is bought off. So what makes you think that term limits is going to do that? When that's
is Bernie Sanders bought off?
He has a couple larger donors.
Is he bought off? Do you believe that he's actually a man of principle?
I think he is one of the few that is not. What
would happen if Bernie Sanders what would happen to Bernie Sanders if there was a term limit of say 3 consecutive or 3 terms? Would we still have that kind of
Bernie Sanders would bring somebody under his wing and try to get that person to replace the seat, but ultimately the voters would get to choose.
So then an unelected party boss ends up getting the immense amount of power that is not being able to be held accountable.
Not what I said.
But you said he would be able to pull somebody under his wing and be able to move them through.
Yes, Bernie could befriend somebody and have this person come to events and have this person would already have the same opinions as Bernie, and Bernie would say, I like this guy. Not some unelected party boss from like the DNC saying it. Bernie would say, I like this guy.
No, it's actually the exact same principle. So the left consistently says that the DNC has this immense amount of power that they're able to wield and influence elections and things like that. If without term limits, people are able to rise up to their position, their expertise, their power, and be able to counter some of that. If you get rid of those people in Congress and have them cycle through whatever the term limit might be, 2, 3, 4, 5, whatever the case, you end up eroding that and putting power back into party bosses because you have to keep not consensus. I'm losing the word here, but you have to keep consistency across the different
How many Bernie-like people do you think would be willing to run around the country if the incumbent person that's been there for 30 years suddenly was gone? Because the answer is a shit ton. And continuously, they're winning despite the lack of big funding. They're winning when these other politicians exit. Whether that they're exiting, some of them are exiting for term limits because they have their own issues. Or not issues, but they have their own laws. Or whether they're exiting because they're done with politics. A bunch of these people that are not super corporate funded, that are mostly grassroots funded, these people are winning. What we're seeing right now, when people actually go and leave office and somebody has to take over, we are seeing the non-corporate funded people winning. But these people that have been there too long need to step down for that to even happen.
I think that you are attributing the primary problem here to you're doing attribution here. The issue with those is not the fact that they are incumbents. The issue with those is funding and the things that surround that, and the fact that elections themselves are not very competitive, whether it comes from the internal primary politics of it or it comes to the general election.
The issue is
specifically that part. The issue is funding. So a person that is new to the scene is less likely to get funding, but regardless of their establishment.
Those are the people that are winning. That's what I'm saying. We've seen this trend for the last 2 years. Those are the people that are winning.
Yeah, they're winning now, but they're winning in spite of the fact there's no term limits.
Yes, they're winning because other people are stepping down, though. So if we have term limits and we have other people that are forced to step down after sitting there with name recognition for 30 years, because so many studies show that name recognition matters more than any campaigning you do.
Okay. Do you disagree? Do you disagree with me?
The only reason that they're still there. They are not
disagree with me
that
that's a violation of democratic principles.
To say that this person can't hold the exact same position? No, because you know what that person can do? They can still go represent their community. They can either go back to local. If they're in Congress, they can go to the House. Or if they're in the Senate, they can go to the House. If they're in the House, they can go to the Senate.
I think many countries would disagree with you, but that's fine.
Appointed position, they can apply for a different appointed position. It's not that they have to be out of government completely. It's that position needs to be changed.
I simply, at a base, just disagree with that because it's a violation, in my opinion, of liberal democratic principles of people being able to choose a representative, even if it's the same crusty older person over and over again. The fact that we have a Bernie Sanders able to run forever is fine to me as long as the people that want that. Part of the problem that we have with our system is the fact that these positions aren't very competitive from a general election perspective. With or without name recognition ID or anything like that, due to the nature of first past the post winner take all election systems, the fact that we don't have multi-member districts, etc. All those things make it to where people are less competitive in general. And if we solve that, we actually fix the issue that you have, which is the fact that people are staying there forever despite the wishes of other people.
So I agree with you that first past the post and a bunch of these things are issues in our elections. I agree with you that those should also be changed, but that still does not fix the core issue of term limits, of people sitting in positions, getting comfortable in positions, and then not being accountable to the people. This goes beyond elected officials, which we have not talked about yet, but somebody like a Fed chair. A Fed chair should not be able to sit there forever because a Fed chair, as of anybody else, is inevitably going to start thinking about their own interests. When they are not in a position where they are new,
if this debate
they've had decades to establish relationships that are separate from the relationship with the public, right? That are separate from any of these things. They're going to have alternative interests, and that's why they need to go. Same goes for FBI director. Same goes for any of these agency directors and any of these things.
If this debate was, do you agree with term limits on some things, I would be in agreement with you. But that's not what the debate is. The debate is focused on, should it be applied to across the board? And that is where I disagree with. That's where I disagree with this prompt.
Why do you disagree with it on these appointed positions that I've just mentioned?
I didn't say that I disagree with it on appointed positions.
Okay. What do you disagree with term limits on?
Congress elected positions, generally speaking, the president being an exception due to the immense amount of power that the presidency holds, which can be solved in other ways, which could then open that back up to pure or more liberal democratic principles.
Okay, so you don't think that every member of Congress has power. You've
Correct.
already said that. It doesn't make any sense when these votes are coming down to 1 to 5 votes that are deciding the complete funding of our government, the complete direction of our government. That would make me think that every single one of these votes matters quite a bit. Would you disagree that every vote matters when you have this tight of a margin?
This tight of a margin would be a good thing, and I don't mind the power being more vested in people that are elected representatives in those instances. Specifically, because the majority of power is diffused.
So you agree that when it's close, they have a lot of power. Each member has a lot of power.
Sure, they have.
But your entire reasoning earlier for not having term limits on them is that they don't have a lot of power.
No. My reasons were expertise, being able to follow democratic principles, and mitigating
There's no
power
reason that the
concentration and wealth.
expertise matters here. There's literally no reason that expertise means sitting in the same seat in the House for 20 years.
Do you disagree that politics is a thing that people can become experts at?
I don't disagree with that. As
Okay.
I said before,
Do you believe that's
you can't hold the
important?
same position. You can be a state House representative. You can be a Senate
Do you think?
member.
Do you think
can
that the
then
House
go to the
is?
House. You can make politics a career. You just can't sit in the same position for 20 years.
Do you think that the expertise in a state legislature transfers to federal?
I think that it transfers well enough for people to be able to do the job well, considering first-time elected House members and first-time elected Senate members are able to do their job well from the get-go if they're
Okay.
decent people that are elected.
Would you say that there is expertise that does develop over time in specific elected positions? So you get different expertise for running state government than you do from running federal government positions.
It is different, but it's transferable. Is the thing.
Okay. So in your mind, it is not different enough to say that that's the thing that we should be.
Yeah, it's not. Okay. It's not different enough to create a problem for somebody to like not know what they're doing.
I mean, that's an impasse. So.
Okay, so what your expertise point is bullshit. Your term limits leads to power being in the oligarchs. It's also bullshit because that's already the case without term limits, and makes no sense as to why that would become more of an issue, especially with how we've seen elections going for the last couple of years.
It's more of an issue because of the fact that when you have term limits, you do not have people that are able to build up their own independent power sources that then makes them be able to remove themselves from that. Bernie Sanders can only exist by him being in that position for as long as he's been in that position.
No. Bernie Sanders got elected. He could have stayed there for, I don't know, say 8-10 years.
No one would give a damn about Bernie Sanders when he's not in Congress.
What?
No one would give a damn about Bernie Sanders.
He can still be in Congress. That's what you don't understand. He can't sit in his Senate seat. He can go to the House. That's also Congress.
So you can go back and forth, or are you saying that?
No, but if we have like a 10-year term limit, you can do that for 10 years, go to the other one for like 10, 12 years, something like that. That's 22 years of your life. Then you can move on.
Yeah, I just disagree.
In fact, then you can go back to your state and do some work back at home in the state Senate and the state House for another 20 years. That's 40 years of your life.
I fundamentally disagree with that, because the reason that Bernie Sanders has as much power as he has is because he's become a Senate institution in and of himself.
All right.
And could he not become a House institution with the other House fucking libtards? Sorry, that came out.
So it's all right. It's the judges who are going to decide if that was good or bad. So we're going to go ahead and jump on in there. It seemed like a logical place to kind of land there at a impasse, as you said. But we do have a few questions from the judges. Sorry, but we are going to go ahead and skip past the audience vote on this, or the audience question on this one, just because I want to get through. We got a fair number of questions here. So just like the other ones, I'm going to go Aff first, then I'm going to go Neg, back and forth. So Gorps, you first. Do you believe that there is a benefit to having a congressperson who has an entire career to make the changes necessary? As this was sort of the last thing that Cypher was saying regarding Bernie Sanders. There are other examples where a particular representative spends an entire career trying to move the needle. Do you see a benefit to that?
In a singular position, no.
Okay. And you had said something about passing the torch. Do you believe that that is a reliable way to get a longer term goal accomplished?
Yeah, and I think it's smart for every politician to do. I think every politician should already be trying to do that, even if we don't have term limits.
All right. Looking at you now, Cypher. How do you believe expertise matters in representation if representation is your stated goal? So in other words, how do you become more expert at representing the will of the people if that is the purpose of a representative in Congress?
One could argue that while being in the position, you learn more and more about your constituents' concerns while in that position, because you're going to have them come to you over different issues over time, and therefore you can become more of an expert of what your community or your whatever group you're representing. I would argue we need to have more Congress critters in office, but you could end up becoming more knowledgeable about what issues they are and do synthesis around those issues. So if somebody comes to you with one issue and another person comes with the other, then you can be like, wait, these are actually linked by this thing, and then you could maybe solve that thing to fix both issues.
Okay.
Keep it generic.
Going back to you, Gorps. Do you think it can take a long time to affect a change? Pretty straightforward question.
Just like generally, yes.
Like obviously governmentally.
And I think it can take a long time, and it can take a lot of people.
Okay. And we have another question for you now, Cypher. What is your best reason that a person should have a lifetime appointment to a position?
I'm not sure if I would say that everybody should have a lifetime appointment to a position. I came into this with the understanding that this was an all or nothing kind of question. So when we have certain positions that are lifetimes, such as judges, that really slows down the change of progress that I think a lot of people would want or not want. But on the other side, conservatives actually like that. It is part of a function of our government and how it's designed. It's designed to be slow moving, and that is partly why judges are lifetime appointments. But I would not sit here and argue that every single position should be a lifetime appointment. I would even argue that many should be term limited. I'm specifically focused on the elected officials, which can be remedied through other means.
Okay. All right, good stuff. And it looks like that is actually all of our questions. So I'm going to go ahead and put 3 minutes on the clock now for you, Gorps. This is your closing time. Use as much of it as you're ready.
I messaged you a couple questions.
Oh, did you? I'm sorry, I missed them. Cassell sure did.
Yeah,
My bad. I'm so sorry. Going back to that. 1 minute on the clock now for you, Gorps. Boink. And yeah, I'm sorry about that, bud. For Gorps. During the conversation, it seemed like you agreed someone like Bernie isn't bought off, but wouldn't someone like Bernie anointing someone under his wing that he likes be an unfair advantage if all candidates aren't starting on an equal playing field because whoever Bernie likes gets Bernie's voters?
I don't think the voters would entirely just blindly go to this person. I don't think it's really unfair for a candidate to say, "Hey, I'm leaving office. This is who I like." I think that is actually pretty transparent. And if voters want the same thing, the same sort of thing that Bernie has done, they can go and vote for that person. If they want a bit of a change, they can vote for somebody else. I think it's just transparency. There's another part to that question. What was the other part?
That was basically it. So basically, it was making sure that you were talking about the corruption of long term, and that the solution would be somebody to pass the torch. And the question is, would that not give an unfair advantage in a fair and equal election? An advantage akin to massive donations. So, but okay. And then now over to you, Cypher. Oh, no, my bad. Also for you, Gorps. For an unelected position like Fed chair, isn't it important to keep someone in that seat during the set terms to avoid market turmoil or constantly changing monetary policy?
During the set terms, yes. But there's set terms. That's the thing. Is I don't think that we should have the same Fed chair for 40 years. But I think something like, as an example, like a 10-year Fed chair or a 5-year Fed chair, that is perfectly valid. But it's when they start going longer into like the decades that we run into problems. We run into ulterior motives.
All right. Good stuff. Now we're going to go ahead and put that 3 minutes on the clock for you, Gorps. You go first. 3 minutes to close. Clock will start with you.
All right. So as I have said plenty of times at this point, I think that something very important about government is the government being accountable to the people and nothing else. The government should not be accountable to random corporations, foreign officers, or anybody else. And I think that having term limits allows for us to have a greater safety net in making sure that that is the case. Because when people are sitting here in our government in the same position for 40 years, talking to the same other people for 40 years, they're going to create ulterior motives, whether they want to or not. At a certain point, people get corrupted ultimate power ultimately corrupts. And so having term limits allows us to try to avoid that a bit. It doesn't fix all the issues, but it avoids that a bit. It also, again, opens the door, new voices for possible third-party candidates. When you have no incumbent, you have the option for something new. And that's not always going to be a Democrat or Republican. Some of you may like that, some of you may hate that, but it's facts. At the end of the day, my opponent could not name something that he actually supported a lifetime appointment to, which seemingly would mean that some level of a limit here he would support. Now, he might not support it like written into law, like I'm saying. However, he supports some level here. He said he wouldn't like to see the judiciary in a lifetime appointment. That is, as far as I'm aware, the only true lifetime appointment we have. Everything else would need a limit, a term limit, some might call it. And again, just term limits protect our democracy from corruption. They protect our actual bureaucracy from stagnation, and it stops any individuals from gaining a super high level of entrenched power that they can then use for anything other than the will of the people. That's all I got.
All right. 3 minutes is now on the clock for you, Cypher. Last words, sir. Clock starts with you.
So as I argued, I believe that liberal democratic principles should be seen first and foremost in this. Term limits at their base for elected positions violate that, as it removes the people's choice to have their own representative. I would further argue that term limits does not actually help prevent oligarchy or foreign influence in our campaigns or in our parties. If anything, it actually helps that to happen because of the fact that a party needs to have continuity within generations. And in order to have that continuity without people serving long term within the elected positions, the party bosses have to be able to whip the parties into shape and get their things passed that way. And those are unelected, essentially unelected bureaucrats within the party structures themselves that are accountable to nobody except the people that fund them. So that is why I would say this. One thing that we didn't get into the debate is that I believe most of the issues that Gorps brought up is actually solved through other means that keep democratic principles, mainly getting rid of first past the post, winner take all voting systems, introducing some sort of ranked choice voting, or the like to make elections themselves more competitive. Once elections themselves are more competitive, should the populace decide that a person should no longer be there, it would be much easier for them to do so. However, if the populace decides they want that same person, a la Bernie Sanders or somebody else, maybe Nancy Pelosi, due to their effectiveness and their ability and their expertise that they have developed, the populace should be able to do that as well. That's really all I have for this. Thank you for the debate.
All right. Good stuff. So that is all 3 debates in the bag. We did it, kids. Now, I'm going to go ahead and drop that last link for this vote into the chat, and this time I'm even going to remember to give it to Lutch in our chat. Boom and boom. And everybody go ahead and lock your votes in for us, just in case it comes down to another tie. We're going to go back to you first, AlleyCat. This whole night of great debates. Let me hear what you thought about this, sir.
Sure. I love this debate. I always this is a good one that goes back and forth. But I think that the topic itself was the key hitter point. It's literally all. And I will agree that Cypher actually doesn't believe in lifetime appointments for like SCOTUS members and such that. But what he does what he does not want is term limits for senators and representatives, right? Because there is a vote there. And so that's kind of what the argument that swayed me the most was just the fact that, when you're asking for all, you really have to cover all. And voting seems a good way to do it as long as it's free and fair, like he's advocating for. So I give it 4-6.
4-6 in favor of Cypher. Now, Cassell, where did you come up?
Yeah, it was a good debate by both debaters here. I think Gorps did a really good job until the end. He just was winning, and then at the end he just said something about he said libtards, I think, and then just flipped for me. So 11 to -1 for Cypher. No, I'm kidding. Um, I agree with AlleyCat. I think that the prompt screwed Cypher over. I disagree with Gorps. I still disagree with Gorps, but the way he debated, and I think the way the prompt is set up, it just made it so hard for Cypher that when I was talking even about the Fed chair or like AlleyCat mentioned Supreme Court, there's just ways that Gorps mentioned, like even you could admit like you don't want these people at lifetime appointments. So it was really tough. Both people did a good job, but it was hard for me. So I'm with AlleyCat 4-6, same score, Gorps.
Actually, he was 4-6 in favor of Cypher, correct, AlleyCat?
Oh, he was.
Yeah, so that means that it is once again tied. If you had
tied up
6-4 for Gorps, I did correct. Got that right, correct, Allie? You gave it to Cypher, correct? Yeah, that's what I thought. Just making sure. You are muted.
Yeah.
All right,
Yeah,
cool. Well, then once again, it's tied, and it matters what the audience thinks. So please, everybody, get those votes locked in, because y'all decide the fate here. And
did I just completely like misrepresent AlleyCat? Because I thought he was making my argument.
So he was making the same argument. This will be fun actually in the after party. We're gonna go backwards and we'll start with this one because I'll let the two of y'all sort of hash it out yourselves. He did say the same things as you. The difference is he believed that it was Cypher who was offering the alternatives and gave the alternatives better, whereas technically in my notes both debaters offered up the alternatives. The only difference was that Cypher was saying that term limits was not the solution for most positions. Well, actually I can't even say that. Specifically he was talking about Congress. So he was specifically talking about in Congress he didn't believe that it was a useful solution, but both of them talked about all of the others. So you just felt that Gorps made a better case for. So either way, let's look and see what the audience said.
Conversation afterwards for sure.
Yep. And that's why we do it. All right. So lacking it in 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Boom. All right. So it looks like our results on this one are in favor of the affirmative. We are at a 60-40 for the AF, which means Gorps won by a nose hair on this one. That is actually as close as it can possibly get, and you still get a win. So great job on that. And a overall great job.
Can I just say?
You can.
Cypher, I think you won, but I appreciate it.
I was going to say I actually kind of felt that as well. Before we go on. Before we go on, and I didn't get the chance to do this on stream last time because because the person left too quick. So I want to make sure I do it this time. The only vote that I actually get throughout the course of the night is I get one vote for the MVP for the night. I get a 10-point bonus that I get to give to whoever I thought brought it the best. And the fact of the matter is I always feel like a proud papa who loves every single one of y'all equally, but I do have to give it to Lutch tonight because even though, yes, he was defending my favorite prompt and my favorite position on that prompt, I also felt like a lot of his arguments were very well formed. His opening, even though he did have to truncate it severely, his opening was really, really good. And there were a couple of times where he was able to get passionate without having to get worked up. But then later on, he also got worked up. So it was just entertaining. It was fun. It was great. It was not a huge margin, but I definitely felt like Lutch was the MVP of the night. So that said,
Thank you.
Yeah, no, thank you. And thank everybody else. Once again, this is now where we're going to change to the after party. And what this is, for those of you who do not know, is anybody that I already know. If you're part of the Discord server and you have been here before and I know who you are in the channel, you're welcome to jump on in here. If you're already got that everyday streamer tag, then you should be able to jump straight into the hotbox. If you don't have that tag, jump into any room that you can see and I'll drag you up here. Also, if you're new to the server or new to the chat and somebody in the room says, hey, that's a buddy of mine, or hey, I know that person, I will go ahead and give you a straight ticket in as well. but just do your best to mind your manners and behave as best you can. So that said, thanks again, everybody. And I do have some opening stuff, but I'd like to hear the two judges discuss that little bit there at the end, kind of reconcile where you guys thought the good points came from, if you don't mind.
So again, it was just the fact of all, and I think Cypher was advocating, yeah, there's a lot of good reasons to have term limits, especially for appointed positions, but it's the elected positions that don't need the term limits. And so that's not all. And so that was where the justification was.
So the distinction for you, AlleyCat, was the fact that he poked a hole in the idea of all, and so okay, and does that make more sense to you, Cassell, as to why he was actually for Cypher instead of Gorps?
You're muted.
You're muted, my friend. Don't you hate when that happens?
Motherfucker.
Right? You're still muted. Yep.
Yeah, your Discord is muted specifically.
True story.
Got some radish level tech issues here.
Right there, Gorps. Right there, buddy. I mean, you're not wrong.
Sorry, I don't know why
I
don't know why my mute thing went away. No, I was saying like I don't know if I was trying to say I might be slow. I'm definitely slow if I can't find my mute button. I might be slow tonight to not get that positioning. So before we get back to that, my reasoning was, that all positions and all appointed employees, I guess by you could say the president or whoever, accounting for people like in the Supreme Court or the Fed chair, so on and so forth, or the governors of the Fed, like those folks being I guess in lifetime positions, technically, like you could technically be a Fed chair for, I mean, they have terms, but you could keep getting nominated by the same president or a different president each time. And those are like 10 years. So let's say just sticking to the Supreme Court, like if those are essentially lifetime appointments, I think that where I was coming from was that Cypher would probably agree that we should limit them in some way. And I think that's where, for me, it was like hard to distinguish the argument against that, right? Like if those folks are not limited, but they should be, that was like the one little crack in his argument. Because I agree with the premise. Like I'm against term limits myself, but just from that point, being super technical, that's what hung me up a little bit. But I'm still trying to understand more about AlleyCat's point about like just focusing on Congress, because
okay, so the prompt is specifically all positions and elected officials. Okay, so let's grant that all appointed positions should have term limits. Let's grant that. You still have to contend with the elected officials, and I don't believe those should have it. They already have. Well, they don't have, like, to your point, a lot of things have terms. Like the idea behind term limits is not that there's not a term, it's that there's a limit to how many terms you can have.
Right.
And I,
to the president, making it only be 2 instead of the many that who was it that had nearly 4, but I think he died in office?
FDR. He's the reason, yeah.
I always forget names.
All right, so real quick, I got a little bit of quick housekeeping that I want to do, that I feel like I need to do, especially now that I see that Lonzo has come in here. And I apologize that we have to do this, but it is something that I feel like needs to be done. So first things first, as for those of you who were here last week, we had a little bit of drama coming out the gate into the after party. And in that drama, some things happened that I didn't fully understand what was going on while it was happening. I have since had the time to not only do some, like, go back and watch and see how things unfolded, but also do a little bit of research and reading, et cetera, et cetera. And I've been, it's been discussed with me from all of the different angles. So I want to say, first of all, that I do wish to apologize for unintentionally mischaracterizing the bigotry that was used last time. I referred to two things as racist, which were not technically racist. They were culturalist or perhaps ethnicist, or either way, they were a different flavor of bigotry. But what really matters is that I do not wish to ever mischaracterize people's words or their intentions. So that said, if I have done that in the past, I apologize. And again, I also apologize for not calling things the correct word. But here's what's really important. And I'm going to go ahead and share my Discord just for a split second so that you guys can see what I'm looking at, so you guys can read along, because this is relevant. So TOS for Twitch, because I got to be real with you, Lonzo. I didn't publicly admonish you the way that I should have, and I need to do so now. So, hateful conduct means slap your hand, sir. So,
Okay.
Civility and respect. This is the TOS for Twitch. I'm not going to read the entire long fucking thing, but I'm just going to read the one specifically about hateful conduct. Okay. Twitch aims to be a place where everyone can come together in a shared community experience. This vision is threatened when people experience harmful rhetoric and abuse on Twitch. Twitch does not permit behavior that is motivated by hatred, prejudice, or intolerance, including behavior that promotes or encourages discrimination, denigration, harassment, or violence based on the following protected characteristics: race, ethnicity, color, caste, national origin, immigration status, religion, sex, gender, gender identity, sexual orientation, disability, serious medical condition, and veteran status. We also provide certain protections for age. It's the rules, buddy. The protections of age, which are expressly noted in the examples. Now, we define protected groups as a subset of the population with a shared protected characteristic. Every Twitch user falls into multiple of these protected groups. Twitch affords every user globally equal protections under this policy. So, again, I needed to go through all of that so that everybody knows those are the rules of this conversation. TOS is really my line in the sand, only because we will get kicked out of here. Anybody who knows me knows that at heart, I am a free speech absolutist. I think that every shitty idea should be publicly spoken so that it can be publicly knocked down. However, this is not my house, it's just my stream. So, Daddy Bezos says no, the answer is no. Please, everybody, be as respectful to all of those characteristics as we can moving forward. Whether it's racism, culturalism, or anti-veteranism, we need to do our best to not attack, denigrate, etc., all those other fun words against those groups. Thank you very much for listening to my TED Talk.
Really want to denigrate.
I know, and I do too, goddammit.
Wait, hey, let me correct something. I didn't attack the man for being a veteran. I attacked him because he was a shitty person.
Actually, you did.
And a veteran.
Actually, you did. And we're not going to relitigate it again. I'll show you the VOD if you need me to. But you specifically
remember what I said.
You specifically insulted him.
You served in Iraq.
You specifically insulted him for the service that he did. That was again.
Yeah, I said he also fought in Saudi Arabia.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So again,
no, I absolutely remember what I said.
Like I said, again, only thing that matters is that's what TOS says. So we just got to stay within that. Other than that, though, fucking say whatever you want. Because, again, I hope nobody here is super thin-skinned. We're here to debate, but we're also here to be civil. So that's the other bit of housekeeping that I went last thing. And I would love for all of y'all to weigh in on this. You can just DM me your personal opinions on this as you see fit. I'm thinking about changing it from the Demilitarized Zone. Appreciate the following. I'm thinking about changing it from the Demilitarized Zone to the Civil Debate Club. But I was told that there's no chance any conservative is going to still play with us if we're called the CDC. So that shout out Chief for that one. That was not my joke, but it is true. So, but either way, I like the idea of going to the Civil Defense Club or Civil Debate Club, just because it shows that it's more about a club and all of us trying to get better together, and that we're trying to be as fucking civil about it as possible. But anyways,
are we?
We are supposed to be.
Every time I come here, somebody encourages me to not be civil.